Sunshine, she's here. You can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, go!
Hey everyone, I'm back from my trip. I had a blast down in Florida, got to see my family. It was bittersweet because part of my family has pretty much disowned me. They were gracious enough to be civil and to go out for breakfast and see a movie with me. There never was a real heart-to-heart chat like father-son, mother and son might do in a normal situation, which, you know, I told myself when I was on my way down there that I didn't want to have a heart-to-heart. I definitely didn't want them to bring up Jehovah or the organization with me because it would get awkward really fast. I would go on the defensive. I would probably bring up a lot of things that they don't want to hear. And so I thought going down there that it would be best if, nobody brought it up. But at the end of the trip, I actually felt a little disappointed that it never was brought up. Only because I live really far away from my parents. And, they're not going to be around forever. I don't know how often I can go visit them because it's a long trip. And things happen. Could be, you never know, could be the last time I ever see them. And I guess I'm a little uncomfortable that so much has gone unsaid between us. I've had a few moments on Facebook where I've shown some things to my mother and tried to, help her see. Not that I was trying to break her faith, but I was trying to help her understand why I could not believe anymore in the organization's version of the truth. But other than that, we've not really spoken. They still cling to it in the most bizarre fashion. And I know a lot of witnesses that are kind of doing the same thing. They still cling to the core beliefs, but they're really not zealous anymore. I don't think they go regularly to meetings anymore. And they've sort of become downtrodden, I guess. And the thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is that it's not Satan and it's not worldly people. It's not the world or the devil that's wearing them down. It's this Jehovah, it's this God Jehovah and the organization and its strict requirements that is bringing people down. We live in an economy now where people are just barely making it, working 2 jobs. Some people are going back to school and working. We've got families, people have children and responsibilities that they have to deal with. And then on top of that, this God Jehovah demands whole soul devotion, and he requires the very best that you have to offer, as much time as you can possibly spare, devoted to studying his word over and over and over again, getting dressed up for field service, getting dressed up for 2 public meetings a week. There's supposed to be a night where you have a family study, and then he tells you the only entertainment you're allowed to have is it's very slim what you're allowed to do when you're a Jehovah's Witness to unwind and to enjoy yourself. In an ideal situation as a Jehovah's Witness, enjoying yourself probably means doing something Jehovah oriented, studying together, acting out Bible stories, or doing cheesy things related to the kingdom, and this is just their whole lives. There's no escape. This is what they have to deal with every single day. It's what's expected of them in order to keep their relationship not only to Jehovah their God, but to each other, to their own organization. Their friends and family expect to see this kind of zealous behavior from their fellow members. And I realized that now, looking back, there's just no way. There's no way anyone could keep that up and actually derive pleasure from it. I know I never did. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, if you're still in it, be honest with yourself. Do you really enjoy getting up early on your day off, putting on dress clothes, and going to that place where all the people come up and shake your hand and give you fake smiles and pretend like you're family? Do you really enjoy sitting there and listening to the same information being regurgitated week after week? Do you really enjoy going and annoying people on their day off by knocking on their door? You don't really derive pleasure from it. I've been there. I didn't enjoy it. It was tedious. It was work. We all lied to ourselves and said that we were doing it because we love Jehovah. That is a lie that we tell ourselves. We did it because we were afraid of being in Jehovah's disfavor. We were afraid of not being let into paradise. That is why we did it. That is why we put on the suit. That is why we put on the mask. And that is why we locked away our true natures and hid our very humanity. We pretended that we didn't sin. We hid our sins from the other members of the congregation. And we just prayed. We prayed that somehow these inner things that make us real humans, real people, would stay hidden. So my question is, for everyone, particularly those who are still in the organization, is, are you happy? Are you really happy? Because I remember being incredibly miserable as a Jehovah's Witness. For me, it was more a source of stress. It was more a source of guilt and a sense that I was not good enough. I was not a good person because some very basic things that all people do, I struggled with, and the society told me that those things were wrong, and that if I was doing these things that everyone does, that it was sin, and that I needed to fix it. Not only that, I just derived no pleasure. I derived no pleasure from, let's face it, the truth is boring. The Watchtower truth is boring. It always bothered me that the evil, Satan-driven world, had so many interesting things to offer. Yet the best the God Jehovah could come up with were those boring-ass meetings twice a week, some lame little website. Why is that the only thing that the God Jehovah has to offer? Why is there nothing in the Watchtower that's exciting? My childhood was very hectic in the organization. In my house growing up, there was 8 of us in one house. It was only 2-bedroom. I had 5 siblings, and then of course my parents, all crammed in this small, quaint home. And the routine of going out in service and going to meetings, it had its moments where it could be fun, but as a whole it became boring very, very quickly. Become very mundane. It was very repetitive. And after I learned the basics of what the doctrines Jehovah's Witnesses taught with the Bible, once I learned those doctrines, I no longer found myself challenged anymore. There was not anything else to excite me. It had all kind of eventually been done. And that was it. And that was all we were allowed to study. That was all we were allowed to know. So if we couldn't find enjoyment and we couldn't be challenged through that information anymore, what do you do? And I think that this boring, repetitive interpretation of life is what led me very strongly to be fascinated with fantasy. I dived headfirst into fantasy, fantasy books, fantasy games, fantasy movies, anything that could take me into another world, a more interesting world. I loved it. Magic, swords, knights, dragons, all that stuff. I just love that stuff. And I now know as an adult it's because of how boring the Jehovah's Witnesses' interpretation of life is. There is nothing magical, nothing mysterious about their version of reality. God created us, Adam sinned, and in order to make things right, he sent his son to fix that sin. Now we're just basically waiting around for God to actually do things interesting again, which he hasn't in a long time. The age of miracles stopped for some reason. Jehovah used to do interesting things, do cool things. He doesn't anymore. And we have no way of proving that he actually did any of that biblical stuff. The God of the Bible no longer does anything in our time period. In fact, the way the Jehovah's Witnesses claim that Jehovah operates now is so boring. You know, supposedly he sends his angels to give us the strength to endure situations. Oh, whoop-de-doo. We all endure situations or we die. We don't need some angel there patting us on the back going, you know what, if you just hang in there a little bit longer, I bet you'll get through this. You know what? Because we already do. We either get through situations or we die. Jehovah's Witnesses are no exception to that. It's just such bullshit that they claim to have God's backing and they claim to have God's Holy Spirit, which is supposed to do something, but it never does. You can pray all day long and all you will feel is a 1 to 2 minute high from closing your eyes, calming down, and letting go your burdens onto some mythical person. That gets you a little high for about 2 minutes, and once that's gone, you're back on your own. You've got nothing else. The God Jehovah did not help me. It did not help me through my relationships. He did not help me through my work, my jobs, my work ethic. He didn't do anything for me. He didn't help me lose weight. He didn't help me be a happier person. So my question is, are you happy? Are you happy with the very limited, boring description of life that you've been taught through the Watchtower? Is it enough for you? Does it make you happy? Are you content with that very small scope of understanding of the world, of the universe? I've learned so much since I put the Watchtower down. There is so much out there to learn. There is so much out there to know, to experience. And you're not going to do any of it as a witness. You're not going to know any of it as a witness. I just don't know how you can find fulfillment with that limited scope of understanding. Me personally, I probably would have ended up killing myself had I not branched out and experienced more. I know I'm talking a lot in this episode, but it's been a while since I've done a really long, thorough video. I just have a lot on my mind after this trip and seeing my family. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about was seeing another family member who I'm still very close to because he's disfellowshipped, and so he was never under any obligation to shun me or anything like that, so we remained tight. I was able to see him while I was down in Florida too, and it was a really good time. Like, I love seeing him, but something that kind of drove me a little crazy was he hasn't really watched any of my videos, but somehow we got on the subject of the Watchtower, and I mentioned one of my videos how I found a JW Broadcasting episode, the one where the Bethelite admits to the organization that the Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe Jehovah is the most accurate name of God, and he states right there in plain English that the only reason why the organization uses the name Jehovah is because it's the most widely recognized name for God in English. And he looked at me, he was like, "That's not true. What? You're kidding, right?" And so I had to show it to him. I showed him the video, and he says, "What? Well, any worldly person can stage that." He thought it was a trick. He thought someone had faked a Bethelite saying these things. So I had to prove it to him. I went to jw.org, and I found the same brother on a different article on their website, the Bethelite who said these things that I showed him. I showed him how he's on jw.org, the same guy, to prove that this wasn't just some like apostate saying crazy things pretending to be a witness, right? And he still couldn't believe it. He said, "No, they would never say that. Maybe they dubbed his voice in there or something. Maybe someone dubbed their voice over this JW Broadcasting episode to say these things about Jehovah not being the accurate name of God." He couldn't believe it. It just completely blew him away. He refused to believe what I was showing to him right there in front of his own two eyes. He wouldn't accept it. He couldn't. And it was a little disheartening, really, because I definitely understand, because I was in it, I was raised by it, and when you are taught things from infancy, as you are as a Jehovah's Witness, it's new information is put right in front of you. It's just, it's hard, it's difficult, but it's disheartening for me, and it made me really kind of sad, because it makes me feel like what I'm doing, what I'm trying to show people on my YouTube channel and in other avenues, is rather pointless. I couldn't show him new information and without him distrusting it. And yeah, that sucked. On the one hand, I feel a little discouraged that I can't break people away and I can't show them a better way, or because it infuriates me that people have this much power, that normal, everyday people can create a cult and just put locks on the minds and hearts of people. Millions of people around the world are enslaved by a doctrine, by a very shallow way of thinking. And there are a select few who truly benefit, who truly are happy with the organization and what they believe. There are a select few who all they need is that limited explanation for the universe. But I challenge you to ask yourself, are you really happy? Is this all you want? Is there nothing out there that you want more than to go to meetings, go out in service, and wait for Armageddon? Because that train hasn't come yet. And I got news for you, it's not coming. World War III might even come. But it's not going to come in the way Jehovah's Witnesses predict. And afterwards, the promise, one that everyone invested in, it won't come. It won't come. There will be no paradise on earth unless humans make it that way themselves. The promise was a lie, and it's not coming. So yeah, basically, I started talking about all this just to ask, are you happy? If you are, if you want to keep going to meetings, go out in service, and wait for Armageddon before your life starts to become interesting, if that makes you truly happy, then you know what? That's all you need. Go for it. But there is a wealth of knowledge, of understanding, of beautiful, beautiful things out there that you're missing out on. And I want everyone to know how sincerely and deeply heartfelt I say this. I have never been more happy in my life. Ever since I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, things have increasingly gotten better for me. Now, I've had hard times, just like anyone else. But I had more successive hard times as a Jehovah's Witness by far. And I was able to reach a point in my life to where I was okay with not being perfect. Because as a Jehovah's Witness, I developed this complex where I thought I had to be perfect, or as close to it as possible to be acceptable, to be loved. And it's only after I came out of the organization and made mistakes, and to look myself honestly in the mirror and go, oh, I'm not a perfect person. I don't have to be. It's okay to not be perfect. And see someone who was not always a good guy for the first time in my life. And when I did that, as terrible as it sounds, I actually became a better person because of it. Because instead of being a Jehovah's Witness clone who was still trying to hide all of my wrongdoings and pretend that I was something that I wasn't, now all of a sudden I had come to terms with who I was. You suddenly gain a clarity that you've not known your entire life, and you're actually able to control yourself. Since coming out of the organization, I've read so many books, I've learned so many things, so many beautiful, fascinating things about the start of our universe, various theories on how we got here. I've learned about evolution and just how amazing and beautiful every organism is on this earth. And I have such a more deeper appreciation for all of these things because they weren't created by some sky daddy who walked away. These things happened through trial and error. We're all in this together. Our actions affect everything around us. Since leaving the organization, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life. I've read a lot about how your physical fitness, exercise, meditation, these things. I've learned that happiness is not a thing, it's a verb. Happiness involves action. You can't just sit around and go, oh, I'm happy, because that's not what happiness is. Happiness is getting up every day and doing something about your life for the better. Constantly trying to improve yourself. That is happiness. These things are what's important. Things that I never truly pursued as a witness. I am enormously happy. There's still a lot that I want to improve on. There's still a lot that I want to obtain from this life. And it's a challenge. It's exciting. For the first time in a long time, I feel like a lot of things are within my reach. And, there is some pride knowing that I did these things. I had the help of my friends and my family who have supported me through it all. But I'm not going to let some invisible guy in the sky who's never shown any true interest or bothered to do anything to help me take the credit for the things that I've done. I hope you find what brings you zen, what makes you happy, what gives you fulfillment. And I hope you never stop learning and you never stop loving life and continue to be the very best person that you possibly can. Alright, faithful slave, it's been a long one, but thanks for watching. I'm out.